Hello, and welcome to the final part of FledgeClan. Part 3 is baked and ready like a well-done souffle. If you're new to my clan lore, Part 1 covers the general summary of events as well as the backstory for this specific clan. I also cover the leader, deputy, and medicine cat and a few warriors in the first part, and then the second part finishes up the warriors list, introduces the medicine cat apprentice, and talks about the queens. Part 3 is going to cover the 6 apprentices and the elders. Starting off strong with the apprentices, up first we have Cypress Whisker and Hawkbriar's 3 kits, Adapa, Falcon Paw, and Brindle Paw. Adapa is a medium-haired, cream-spotted she-cat with golden eyes. From the moment she was born, she was a spunky cat, being the loudest of the bunch and causing ruckus while her other 2 siblings would try to sleep. She was the largest and most active out of the 3, and this carried on well into her apprenticeship. Adapa was continuously going and going with the energy of 10 apprentices in one body. The day of her ceremony, she was so excited that she accidentally knocked her sister off the rock. Everyone thought her enthusiasm was endearing, and Hawkbriar got a lot of compliments about how she was going to grow up to be a strong warrior someday. She was assigned Frogtail as a mentor. At first, things went smoothly. They had a ton of fun getting to know one another, and time went by pretty fast. However, roughly a moon into her apprenticeship, Frogtail was at her wit's end, struggling desperately to keep tabs on the sporadic she-cat. She never seemed to run out of energy no matter how many training sessions they completed or how many territory assessments they got through. Adapa was becoming fed up with menial tasks and saw them as punishments, not understanding the benefit of it all. She grew hostile at any cat that she deemed controlling, and lashed out at the younger apprentices for following the rules. When this too didn't work like she thought, she one day made up a lie about seeing an enemy cat catching prey on the territory. Coincidentally enough, the direction she pointed in had the scent of outsiders lingering, and she was praised for her keen senses and quick eye. She was right once, even if she had made it up, so what else could she convince the clan of? This got to her head pretty quickly, and over time she spat out more and more fibs, each time getting a rush of adrenaline as she tricked another cat. The more times it worked, the taller her tails grew, and eventually her clanmates started catching on. Even though no one would believe her, at this point she was itching for trouble and kept egging it on, claiming wild stories after wild stories. She began picking on the other apprentices and even her own sibling to get out some of the frustration that she was holding on to. No matter how many punishments or lectures she received, she still frustratingly kept picking fights and hitting cats where it hurt the most. She was on a mean streak and she made it everyone's problem. One night she heard a super strange sound coming from outside the camp. With the clan being wary of her, she knew she couldn't tell anyone, so she snuck off to figure out what the sound was on her own. Climbing to one of the taller cliffs, Adapa spotted a pack of coyotes chasing after another animal. Her hackles rose and fear tingled down her spine. She rushed back into camp and woke everyone up, terrified that these dogs would come and corner them in their camp and eat them alive. Her mother snapped at her to go back to sleep, and that the warriors needed to rest so that they could keep camp safe during the day. Others told her that she must have been dreaming. Frustrated, she tried really hard to convince them, and not a single cat batted an eye. In that moment, she regretted telling so many tall tales, and now the safety of the clan rested on her shoulders. As she was thinking of what she could do, a dark figure barreled through their camp with pounding footsteps following. The clan then became worried and gathered all the young cats and elders into a safe hiding spot. Up top of a steep hill, the clan watched as the coyote tore into the figure it was chasing, shredding it to bits in front of them. Adapa chased after the coyote, feeling like she owed the clan for her wrongdoings. Several warriors followed her, and together they chased the mangy creature away from their camp. Adapa was both punished and praised all in one night. Punished for being reckless and endangering her own life, but praised for warning the camp and trying to keep everyone safe. From then on, she toned down on her need for mischief, swearing to protect the camp and her clan. She would later be named Adderstrike for her fierceness and sharp tongue. Falcon Paw is a brown spotted tabby tom with short fur and yellow eyes. Being born equally as energetic and rambunctious as his sister, Falcon Paw was exhausting to keep up with. While his mother and the others enjoyed his spunky personality, when it came time to start training, he could never focus on just one task alone. Standing behind the code values and clan safety, he would put his all into making his skills known and appreciated. Being great at make-believe battle strategies and planning defense, Falcon Paw definitely caught the eye of his mother since she was the clan guard. She was swimming with pride for her kit for taking interest in her role. His mentor was Driftwood, and she was able to do a fantastic job of matching the young kit's energy. Falcon Paw was equally as righteous as he was a troublemaker, unfortunately, often helping Adapa in shenanigans and troublemaking. While he seemed to have his heart in the right place, his drive for adventure overtook his rationality. They would sneak out a lot, and with his keen ability to strategize, they wouldn't get caught without a major slip-up or something. The two of them got into lots of trouble, but they never let it deter them from keeping the senior warriors on their toes. Driftwood actually encouraged his curious and strong-natured will, believing that finding himself when he was young and embracing it would benefit the young kit far more than suppressing himself and having it show through anger and bitterness later on. She was thankfully able to keep up with him, challenging him to excel in the areas that he was already good at. They would often go head-to-head racing through the territory, or they'd be seen sparring in the training area for long periods of time. Driftwood had so much fun challenging her apprentice, getting to experience what it would have been like to be raised into the clan that she came to love. It was almost healing to see the apprentices being wild and having a blast. Falcon Paw was able to get out his energy this way too. As he grew older, he stepped away from troublemaking and took an interest in organizing patrols and upping camp security. He would eventually be named Falcon Cry for his bold personality. And last of the three siblings is Brindle Paw. Brindle Paw is a long-haired, black and red, dilute tortoiseshell tabby she-cat with amber eyes. As polar opposite from her siblings as she could get, Brindle Paw was not a very outgoing cat. She stayed quiet and stuck to herself a lot, not really wanting to play a lot even as a kid. Her reserved nature struck her parents as odd. Her siblings' careless nature and fiery personalities reminded Cypress, Whisker, and Hawkbriar of their own rivalry as young apprentices, but Brindle Paw's quietness was a surprise to them. They loved her no less for her reserved personality, but wound up unintentionally focusing on the other two a lot more. They would spar with each other, play chase around camp, and roughhouse with their parents, but Brindle Paw just wanted to explore. When she was old enough to be apprenticed, she was assigned River Flight as a mentor, a cat who was equally as reserved as she was. Brindle Paw loved going on outings with both her mother and her mentor, since she could take her time and really draw in her surroundings. Sometimes Hawkbriar's injuries slowed them down just enough to where Brindle Paw didn't feel rushed. Through her gentle steps and graceful movements, she excelled in hunting and found her skill there. With her mother taking on the role of clan guard, she looked up to her position and wished to one day follow in her footsteps. However, every time she brought this up, her siblings would stomp all over her aspirations, saying that she could never be useful if she had no interest in actually fighting and getting ahead. While that stung, her mentor reassured her that she was just fine exactly how she was, and that whether she had a special title or not, it didn't make her any less important. Riverflight often told her that she reminded her of herself, always caring too much but not getting to put a paw forward in terms of ranking. Brindle Paw was a cat who always ensured the camp had enough food for the seasons and clean bedding. She always went out of her way to make sure the elders were content, bringing them fresh bedding and finding them the fluffiest moss. Brindle Paw would go on to make great friends with Tanglefur, spending a lot of time tagging along on herb gatherings and territory explorations. She would later be named Brindle Moss for her caring personality. Next up is Fernstar and Poppy Stream's kits, who were born within only a few days of each other. Lotus Paw is a blue, cream, and white she-cat with medium fur and blue eyes. As gentle as a feather, Lotus Paw always had a positive, spunky attitude and a caring heart. Even as a kit, she was a curious social butterfly and wanted to talk to every cat as soon as they entered the camp. She was full of energy and loved to bug the warriors about their trips out, the medicine cat about his herbs. No cat got away without a check-in from Lotus Paw. When the time came, she was assigned Cypress Whisker as a mentor, and the two of them got along pretty well. At first, Lotus Paw was hesitant and shy, but after a little while started opening up to the change. Lotus Paw was pretty quick to trust and gullible, unfortunately, falling for Adapaw's tricks a lot. She was eager to believe any cat that came to her, which she quickly learned wasn't the best idea. Even with a few hard lessons about trust learned, she still found herself blindly believing others. It was difficult to break a habit that just came naturally for her. She became really close with Echa Paw during their training, spending their days together exploring, hunting, completing tasks, and a bunch of other stuff. Their sibling bond was unbreakable, and they relied on each other for many things. Echa Paw was also a great listener, and in response, Lotus Paw would just talk and talk for hours at a time. She appreciated their dynamic a lot. As time went on, Echa Paw started distancing herself more, brushing it off as focusing on training. She would be gone for nearly the whole day with her mentor sometimes, but at the end of the day, she would still sit down with Echa Paw and share about their day while they nibbled on fresh kill. Her curiosity about Echa Paw's whereabouts got the better of her, and she wound up following her around a lot. This caught Lotus Paw some backlash, but after a while, Echa Paw caved in and let her start exploring the territory with her, and they both bonded over a love for the cool cave systems that their territory had to offer. She later received the warrior name of Lotus Pool. Iris Paw is a blue mackerel tabby tom with short fur and yellow eyes. Iris Paw was similar to his sister in a lot of ways. They were both gentle-natured and sweet, making sure everyone else around them was content before taking a breather. When the time came to be apprenticed, he was warmly taken on by Crane Pelt. From the first day of training, Iris Paw was a stickler for the rules and being a commendable code follower. He noticed when other cats weren't exactly following them, but never had the courage to correct them. When it came to fighting, he wasn't the best, lacking confidence in his skills and beating himself up over every little slip-up. Falcon Paw picked on him a lot for this, and it knocked his sense of self to the ground with each word. He was a super quiet Tom and kept to himself, which made it hard to stand up to the other apprentices who picked fun at him. Adapa and Falcon Paw took this and ran with it, targeting him about pretty much everything. He was picked on for being a rule follower, a stick in the mud, a downer. When they started picking on Lotus Paw too, that was the first time he actually stood up to them. When his words were met with more mockery, he froze up, unsure of what more to do. He ended up purposefully making himself an even bigger target to protect her from their kit-like bickering and antics. For a brief period of time, they went after him specifically, hoping to get some kind of rise with their teasing. But honestly, he didn't mind. He mostly shrugged it off, his reserved ways keeping him out of spats and dodging conflict. This was a trait that his mentor enjoyed about him, seeing himself in his apprentice. The two of them got along super well, matching each other's grumpy and stoic energies. Iris Paw was factual and punctual, made sure he was up and ready for patrols on his own, kept up with tasks, and even took on more when he was bored, and much more. He is also gentle with kits and loves being around the nursery just like his father. The elders like to joke that one of their spirits must have passed along into him because he treated kids not much younger than him like they were his own. He was a seasoned soul despite only being several moons old. They also liked to comment about how he was keeping grouchy old crane pelt spirits high, mentioning all the time that they hadn't seen the Tom so spry on his toes until he became Iris Paw's mentor. This made him happy. As they continued through their training, Iris Paw found that sticking to himself was the best. He observed the others getting along super well and felt like he stuck out like a sore thumb. He'd often hang around with his father, who would shower him with praise and affection, reassuring him that his gentle ways, kind heart, and quiet nature was perfect just the way it was. When new kits entered the nursery, they all flocked to Iris Paw first, being a magnet due to his calm nature. He was later named Iris Whisper. And lastly on the apprentices list is Fernstar's kit, Echa Paw. Echa Paw is a medium-haired, black and cream mackerel tabby she-cat with blue eyes. She was born an only kit, being quite small and frail from early on. She was sickly at first, with Fernstar having to spend several days at a time in the medicine den with Quail Tuft out of worry. No matter how much Quail Tuft reassured them that their kit would be fine in due time, Fernstar could not help but drive themselves mad with worry. They couldn't ever forgive themselves if another one of their kits were lost. Sleepless nights and endless pacing seemed to slowly come to an end once Echa Paw recovered. She was named Echa Paw for a few reasons. For one, she would mutter a lot of sounds in her sleep, with it almost seeming like she was having dreams of talking with other cats. Secondly, and sadly, the young kit was also an echo of the other two Fernstar had given up so many moons ago. With their kits heavy on their mind, they decided to pour their heart and soul into Echa Paw, all of the longing and regret slowly ebbing away. This was a secret her parents kept from her, being careful never so much as to even hint at it. For her training, she was assigned Egret Blaze as a mentor. His spunky, energetic personality wasn't exactly favorable for her. At first, she was standoffish and shy, not wanting to show too much of her emotions to other cats. Unlike Iris Paw, Lotus Paw, and Brindle Paw, she never fell into the trap of being bullied by Adapa and Falcon Paw. She would brush it off like it was nothing. She was mostly quiet and reserved, hardly having an interest in learning how to fight or doing any of the other general tasks. Egret Blaze was pumped to have an apprentice again, so Echa Paw's lack of interest began to frustrate him and they would butt heads a lot. After a bit, he picked up on something. Echa Paw was great at observing and analyzing her surroundings and seemed to genuinely enjoy the curiosity of the unknown. Eventually, her and Egret Blaze connected over a shared interest in exploration and adventure. Once they started traversing the territory and uncovering places no one else knew about, Echa Paw's confidence exploded and she had a difficult time containing her excitement. As an incentive, she was promised to go wandering about once she got through some of her regular training and apprentice tasks. Previously, the clan just stuck to the small patch of forest in front of their camp, with no cat wandering out much further. But Echa Paw loved to push the limit of their small boundaries. She would also constantly observe Quail Tuft weaving in and out of the cave systems, her curiosity getting the better of her. As much as she wanted to connect with the other apprentices and train with them and go on patrols, something about the cave systems absorbed her whole train of thought at all parts of the day. She became fascinated with them. Soon she met other cats at gatherings that shared her interest in caves, and she felt like she belonged when she talked to them. They all had the same strong pull that she did. As time went on, her curiosity about everything led to many enthralling discoveries. She would later be named Echa Wish for her strong connection to the stars, taking on the role of sage and continuing to uncover more truths of the lands. Please don't think I cut this short, I'm being vague on purpose. No spoilers. And last but not least are the elders of the clan. First up is Trout Nose. Trout Nose is a black spotted tabby tom with short fur and copper eyes. Despite his gray muzzle and weary bones, he is still one of the most spunky elders any cat has ever met. He always loved entertaining others with telling stories long before he settled into the elder's den. Seeing many wild things throughout his days, he now tells these tales to the kits of the clan, with their tiny minds eager to eat up any story told. He's always had a soft spot for kits and has a reputation for being the clan goof, always being up to something and getting in trouble in his younger days. Troutnose lived out his days as a goofball warrior, loving to pull pranks on his clanmates. Everyone in the clan kept high spirits and a positive attitude when the Tom was around, and he took joy in being such an upbeat cat. His silly antics caught the eye of another fellow warrior named Ivory Bark, who found his personality endearing and sweet. She was pretty much the opposite of him, serious and standoffish, not wanting to fall into the trap of meaningless fun. But Troutnose was the sole cat who made her break character, helping her through a lot of tough times. Together they had 2 litters. The first one sadly didn't make it due to a severe infection one leaf bear. Their second litter was Fernstar and Riverflight. Ivory Bark unfortunately lost her life soon after, Troutnose's love for her passing on to their kits, and he spent every day making sure that they were loved and happy. As he grew older, he was pretty much everyone's dad, caring for each young member of the clan as if they were his own kin. Next up is Bleakface. Bleakface is a blue and white she-cat with short fur and yellow eyes. The quiet she-cat has always been a reserved soul, showing little emotion and getting straight to the point of things. As an apprentice, she was uninterested in defying the code like many of the others, with both of her parents being strict influences on her well-mannered behavior. They both raised her with the hopes of becoming leader, a position she never truly wanted but would accept if given since it was her family's wishes. Soon after gaining her warrior status, she was pursued by Cranestar for moons on and off, at first heavily denying interest and ignoring his pushy ways, partially because she enjoyed the lighthearted interactions and silly ruses from the at-the-time deputy. And the other part was accepting that she may never be a leader, but if she was with a cat who one day may be, it would satisfy her family's wishes. Serving the clan by Cranestar's side for many years, she had learned to mind her own business and keep quiet, even more so than before. Every cat trusted her blunt words and cold tone. One of the things in her life that made her show a bit more of her caring side was when her kits were born. Her first litter was Owlspire and Thrushsong, 2 cats that she saw great potential in and encouraged their individual strengths. The second litter was Cranepelt and Egretblaze, with her naming Cranepelt after Cranestar due to him losing several lives at the time. He'd lost every life due to a severe illness, but fronted to her and the rest of the clan that he still had several left. He pulled through and lived on for a while. Bleakface carried the unfortunate knowledge of her oldest kit's plan to take over the clan. Upon finding out, she threatened to have them exiled, but once confronting Cranestar, she was devastated that he turned on her and threatened to have her exiled if word got out. She didn't understand why he would defend 2 cats who were conspiring to end his final life. She didn't even want to think about what was being planned behind closed doors, so she blocked it all out, trying her best to forget about it. When the 2 of them left the clan during the flood, she was devastated, not understanding how and why Cranestar wouldn't do anything to stop them. When Cranestar also turned up missing, she put 2 and 2 together and refused to acknowledge any of it. She was heartbroken, upset, and felt bouts of anger towards the feelings of betrayal and abandonment. She blamed herself, turning into an even more bitter she-cat than she was previously. She still held a soft spot for her kits, being there for Cranepelt and Egretblaze when they needed it. And last up is Carnelian Petal. Carnelian Petal is a dilute orange and white she-cat with short curly fur and red eyes. She's now faded mostly to white, a matte coating glazed over her eyes. She looks worse for wear, her injuries altering her appearance significantly. Her life in Valley Clan was all she could have ever dreamed of since apprenticehood. She lived a peaceful life as a warrior there, excelling in hunting and taking a great joy in everyday clan life. She was the primary cat who took care of the elders of her clan, her sweet and understanding personality growing on every cat she met. Outside of this, she was an adventurous young cat, her curiosity often getting the better of her, and her nosiness was always landing her in poor situations. She grew up terrified to break the code, especially since back then they were far more strict and rule-driven than they are now, but that never stopped her from pushing the boundaries of said rules. She had 2 siblings that meant everything to her, Tawny Patch and Umberlight. Within clan walls, there was a dispute for power, and the foundation became rocky for several moons. Many grueling arguments were had, and the dynamic changes were led by traitorous cats seeking to take over the clan. In the process of that, her siblings were banished, falsely accused with aiding in the downfall of their leader. Carnelian Petal knew from the start that this was all wrong because she spent most of her younger warrior days hanging out with them, and she went everywhere with them. She knew that they weren't involved. The only reason they were banished was to end the leader's lineage. Upon stepping up and defending her wrongly accused kin, she was targeted and framed for similar crimes, unable to defend herself to their vile words. Angry and frustrated, she threw her care for the code aside and set out to find her siblings at every chance she got. Valley Clan was her home, and she never wanted to leave it, so she bit her tongue and waited for things to settle. During a gathering one night on a search for information, one cat in particular caught her eye, and she had her heart set on getting to know him. She fell head over heels for Cranepelt, admiring pretty much everything that she saw about him. He was the stability and calmness that she needed, and once they got together, he did everything in his power to make sure she was alright. She had never been so sure of herself until then, knowing that she loved him. When the tragic event happened during the coldest winter ever witnessed, she did all she could to keep herself and her kids safe, for Cranepelt's sake. A day prior to it all, she was caught with him by a patrol planned by the same cat who was hell-bent on getting her exiled along with her siblings. And this was the push for her to be gone once and for all. One of the cats she was closest with ratted her out, and now she was left alone in the snowfall to have her kids. She barely made it through kidding, being on the very brink of death before being found by Cranepelt. She was frozen to the floor, her limbs going from freezing to feeling like they were on fire to completely numb. Her ears rang and her eyes froze over with tears, begging for someone to help her. Her kits went still, and so did her shallow breathing. The next thing she knew, she was surrounded by the softest bedding she had ever laid on, and the warmth of the strongest sun rays warmed her whole body. She was unable to see, but was at peace. It took nearly a year for her to recover, and it was found that she was taken in by two legs who helped her recover from her injuries after her old friends had brought her there out of desperation. Lingering effects of frostbite left her unable to continue her life as a warrior, even after the dynamic of Valley Clan settled down and fell back into normalcy. Most of the clan assumed she was dead anyways, and she figured it was best to not remember her old life there. Years down the road, her two legs moved towns, and it was as if the stars aligned for her. Being permanently crippled by her injuries and her sight mostly gone, she spent her days sunbathing by the stream behind her two-leg place. The scents of the forest reminded her of her old clan, and she broke down, homesick, wishing that she could go back in time. Wandering too far, she found herself lost once more, unable to see or smell her way home. After moons of wandering, thinking that this was going to be the end, she just so happened to cross paths with a familiar face. She was offered a spot once again in FledgeClan to live out the rest of her days in peace, and she finally accepted the invitation that she denied all those years ago. All was well again. And that is every cat in FledgeClan. Thank you guys for sticking around while I lore dump about these cats. I know that these are longer than usual, but the more the better. Next on the list of clans is Ripple Clan, so keep an eye out for that in the future.